I remember once walking into a crowded reception hall in a hotel in New York. The room was full of the usual mixture of people you find at such gatherings, some standing stiffly with their arms folded, some in little circles talking only to the friends they already knew, some pretending to be busy at the buffet table so they would not have to start a conversation. As I moved through the room, my attention was drawn again and again to one man I had never seen before. He was not the tallest man there, nor the best dressed. He did not tell stories at the top of his lungs. In fact, he spoke rather quietly. But wherever he went, the atmosphere around him seemed to change. Faces lit up a little when he approached. People who a moment before had been reserved suddenly looked more at ease. I watched him for several minutes. He would drift from group to group, greeting people with a simple word or two. He did not dominate the conversation. He did not launch into jokes or talk about his accomplishments. Yet, time after time, I saw the same reaction. Shoulders relaxed, brows unfurrowed, smiles appeared where there had been none. At one point, a young man who had been standing alone by a window caught his eye. The stranger walked over, and from where I stood, I could not hear the words, but I could see the effect. The young man's posture changed. His face opened into an honest, almost surprised smile, as if someone had just turned on a light in a dim room. Within a minute, the two of them were talking as if they had known each other for years. Later that evening, when I asked people about this man, they all said nearly the same thing. "Oh, he's such a likable fellow. There's something about him. You just feel comfortable around him. I don't know what it is, but you like him right away." That intrigued me. I had spent a good part of my life teaching people how to win friends, and here was a man doing it so effortlessly that others could not even explain why it worked. So I began to look more closely. What was he doing that so many others in that room were not? It wasn't his looks. There were more handsome faces in that crowd. It wasn't his words. He did not speak longer or louder than anyone else. It wasn't some grand performance. There was no performance at all. And yet, from the moment he entered the room, people responded to him differently. They leaned toward him instead of away. They remembered him instead of forgetting him. In a hall full of strangers, he became, very quickly, the man everyone seemed to like. I have seen this type of person many times in my classes, in business offices, small towns, and big cities. A student who wins over a whole group within the first day. A neighbor who, within a few weeks, is on friendly terms with everyone on the street. A clerk in a store whom customers seek out, even if the line at his counter is longer. Each time, I ask myself the same question. What are they doing in those first quiet moments that makes people feel so drawn to them? What is the small habit, often so simple that you could overlook it, that makes them instantly more likable, long before they have said anything clever or remarkable? In that hotel reception, I decided I would find out. And what I discovered, watching that stranger everyone loved, was not a secret joke, nor a special charm, nor a talent reserved for the few. It was something so small, so ordinary, that you and I can begin doing it today if only we become aware of it. As I watched that man in the hotel, something else struck me. Most of the people in that room were trying much harder than he was. Many people carry a quiet belief about likability that goes something like this. If I want people to like me, I have to impress them. So they work hard at being funny, or clever, or endlessly entertaining. They prepare stories, they polish jokes, they rehearse opinions. They imagine that likability is a performance. Let me tell you what usually happens when we approach it this way. There is the overeager coworker, for example. He laughs a little too loudly at every joke, jumps into every conversation, tells you all about his achievements before you have finished your first sentence. He means well. He wants to be liked. But after a few minutes in his company, people begin to feel tired. They nod politely, but inside they are thinking, this is too much. He is not disliked because he is a bad person. He is simply working so hard to be noticed that others feel there is no space left for them. Then there is the person who tells too many stories. She fills the air with anecdotes, adventures, and opinions. Her words may be interesting, but there is little room for anyone else's experience. Have you met such a person? You try to share something, and before you have finished, she has a bigger, better, or more dramatic story of her own. Once again, she is not a villain. She is simply convinced that to be liked, she must constantly entertain. But over time, people pull back. They stop sharing. They smile and listen, but they do not feel connected. And then there is the person who tries too hard to be agreeable. He never disagrees, never expresses a preference, never says, "I would rather not." He thinks that by always saying yes, by always adapting, he will be welcomed everywhere. Yet something curious happens. People overlook him. They do not seek his opinion because they have never heard it. They do not feel they know him because he never reveals what truly matters to him. He becomes pleasant, but forgettable. All of these people are making the same mistake in different costumes. They are directing the spotlight toward themselves, either by being impressive, entertaining, or endlessly accommodating. They are trying to answer the question, how can I make you see me? But they have overlooked the far more important question beating quietly in every human heart. Do you see me? Through years of watching men and women in all walks of life, I came to a simple human law. We like people who make us feel noticed, not people who try to be noticed. Think about the people you yourself enjoy being around. Are they always the funniest? The most talkative? The most successful? Often no. They are the ones who, when you are with them, make you feel that you are worth their full attention. They look at you when you speak. They greet you as if your presence is not an interruption, but a welcome addition. In their company, you feel a little more real, a little more significant. That is the likability gap that so many fall into. They put their energy into performing when what truly draws others in is something much quieter, the way they respond to the presence of another person. The man in the hotel did not walk into the room asking, "How can I get everyone to like me?" He walked in, whether he knew it consciously or not, asking, "How can I let each person I meet feel that I see them?" And that small difference in focus changed everything about his behavior. You and I do not need to become comedians, charmers, or social acrobats to be more likable. In fact, the harder we strain for those roles, the more strained our relationships become. What we need is a simple, consistent habit that quietly tells people from the very first moment, "You are not invisible to me." In a moment, I will show you exactly what that habit is and how you can begin practicing it in just 2 seconds at a time. What I discovered, watching that stranger in the hotel and many others like him, is that their secret was not a clever line or a special talent. It was a tiny habit so small you could miss it if you blinked. I came to call it the 2-second acknowledgement. Here is what they did, over and over, without fanfare. When they saw someone, anyone, their very first action was to recognize that person's presence before anything else. They would lift their eyes. They would let their face soften. They would give a small smile or a gentle nod. All of it took no more than 2 seconds. But in those 2 seconds, they sent a powerful message. I see you. Not, I am here, look at me. But, you are here, and I notice you. That is the entire heart of this habit. You may think that sounds too simple to matter, but human beings are built in such a way that these small signals have great meaning. When someone looks up as you enter, when their eyes light just a little, when their expression says, "I'm glad you're here," something in you relaxes. Your body reads it as a safety signal. Your mind whispers, "I belong." Your heart warms without quite knowing why. On the other hand, when you walk into a room and no one looks up, when a coworker passes you in the hallway with their eyes glued to the floor or to a screen, you may not say anything, but you feel it. A very small part of you concludes, "I don't matter much here." Enough of those moments, and your mood begins to change. You become reserved, guarded, less open. From a social point of view, people naturally warm to those who see them first. They may not be able to explain it, but they will say things like, "There's something about her. She's so easy to be around." Or, "He makes you feel welcome." Often, all that is happening is this 2-second acknowledgement, repeated many times. Years ago, I wrote that the deepest craving of human nature is to feel important. When you practice this habit, you are feeding that deep craving in the simplest possible way. You are not flattering. You are not exaggerating. You are merely saying, with your eyes and your expression, "You exist, and I recognize it." Let us see how this looks in ordinary life. You enter a room at work. Many people march straight to their desk, eyes down, already wrapped in their thoughts. The 2-second acknowledgement person does something slightly different. As they step in, they lift their gaze, scan briefly, and whoever's eyes they meet, they offer a small, sincere nod or a "good morning." They have not added a single minute to their day. Yet to the others they have said, "You are not furniture. You are people. Or imagine walking down a hallway and passing a coworker. Most of us, especially when busy, stare at the floor or at some distant point on the wall. Our minds are elsewhere. The micro-habit says, for just 2 seconds, come back, lift your eyes, let your face soften, give a small smile. Even if you are too far for words, you will be surprised how often the other person's face brightens. Over time, you become, in their mind, that friendly person, even if you have never had a long conversation. Before a conversation, this habit is especially powerful. Many people begin speaking while they are still half turned away, or with their mind on something else. Instead, pause for 2 seconds. Turn your body toward the person. Look at them. Let your expression say, I'm here with you now. Then begin to speak. Those first 2 seconds set the tone for everything that follows. Even with strangers, the 2-second acknowledgement works wonders. When you hand your money to a cashier, you can do it without looking up, or you can take 2 seconds to meet their eyes and say, thank you. When you step onto a bus, you can walk past the driver as if they were part of the machinery, or you can glance at them, give a nod, and a good morning. The difference this makes in their day, and in your own, would astonish you if you could measure it. This small habit does not require you to be brilliant, witty, or especially outgoing. It asks only that, for a brief moment, you choose to see the person in front of you. That choice, repeated over and over, is what made the stranger in the hotel so likable. People did not leave his company thinking, what a remarkable man. They left thinking, perhaps without words, I feel a little more human when I am around him. You and I can begin practicing this today. No speeches, no performances, just 2 seconds, many times a day, in which your eyes, your face, and your slight smile say the most powerful words in human relations. I see you. To show you how powerful this tiny habit can be, let me tell you the story of one person, not 3 different men and women, but the same man in 3 parts of his life, at work, with friends, and at home. Scene 1, at work, from neutral to noticed. When I first met him, he worked in a large office. He was competent, punctual, and polite. If you had asked his co-workers about him, they would have said, oh yes, he's nice. That was all. Not disliked, not admired, just there. In the mornings, he would walk into the office with his eyes on the floor or on the clock. He went straight to his desk, sat down, and dove into his work. He believed that the best way to be valued was to keep his head down and do his job. The trouble was that in keeping his head down, he also kept his presence down. People barely noticed when he arrived and barely noticed when he left. When we spoke, I asked him to try one thing. For 1 week, every time he entered the office, he would practice the 2-second acknowledgement. The next morning, he stepped through the door and, instead of walking straight to his desk, he lifted his eyes. One coworker near the entrance glanced up. He let his face soften and said, good morning, Sarah, with a small nod. She smiled back, a little, surprised. At the far end, he caught the eye of another colleague. He offered a brief smile and a morning, Tom. Then he sat down and began his work as usual. 2 seconds here, 2 seconds there. That was all. By the 3rd day, something interesting began to happen. He no longer had to initiate every greeting. People began greeting him first. Hey, good morning. How's it going today? When he passed someone in the hallway, the other person's face lit up before he even spoke. Meetings felt different too. When he entered the conference room, he looked at each person and gave that slight nod. The air seemed warmer. People were more willing to include him in the discussion. He had not changed his job title. He had not become wittier or more talkative. But in the minds of his co-workers, he had shifted from neutral background to that friendly fellow who always says hello. They felt better in his presence, not because of big speeches, but because day after day he made them feel seen before a single word about work was spoken. Seen, too, in social settings, from quiet to quietly magnetic. Outside the office, he described himself as bad at social gatherings. He would stand on the edge of groups, listening but rarely joining in. At the end of an evening, he would go home feeling invisible. I invited him to use the same habit at the next social event he attended a small party a friend was hosting. Instead of walking in, scanning the room for a safe corner and heading there, he paused at the doorway. He lifted his eyes. The host saw him. He smiled and said, "Good to see you." Our friend let his face brighten and replied, "I'm glad to be here." Then, as he moved through the room, he didn't rush to talk. He simply let his gaze rest briefly on each person he passed, offering a small smile or a nod. He did this with the woman arranging glasses in the kitchen, with the guest sitting alone near the bookshelf, with a couple by the window. Nothing grand, just the quiet message, "I see you. What happened?" After a short while, one of the guests by the bookshelf walked over to him. "I think we haven't met yet," she said. "You look familiar, but I wasn't sure." Another guest, the one near the window, later told him, "When you came in and smiled, I thought, he seems kind. I should talk to him." He had said almost nothing, yet people began to initiate conversations with him. The more he practiced the 2-second acknowledgement, the less he had to push socially. Others felt drawn toward him. His quietness was no longer interpreted as coldness. It was framed by warmth. The emotional chemistry is simple. Before he spoke, he had already answered a silent question that lives inside every person in a crowded room. "Does anyone here really see me?" With a glance and a slight smile, he had said, "Yes, I do." And without quite knowing why, they liked him for it. Scene 3, at home, from routine to real connection. Finally, we turned to his home life. "Things are fine," he told me. "We don't fight much, but it feels routine." His wife and children were good people, but the days had fallen into a pattern of quick greetings, tired meals, and evenings spent side by side, not really together. I asked him, what would happen if you treated your family the way you now treat your co-workers in the morning? That evening, instead of entering the house with his mind already on the mail, the bills, or the news, he stopped to the doorway. When his wife looked up from the kitchen, he met her eyes, let his face soften, and gave a real, warm smile. "Hi," he said. "I'm glad to be home." 2 seconds. His young daughter ran through the hallway toward her room. Normally he might have said, "Careful, without looking." This time, he crouched down, caught her eye, and smiled. "Hey there," he said. "I see you're in a hurry." She laughed and stopped to hug him. At dinner, he did the same with his teenage son, who often sat hunched over his plate. He waited until the boy glanced up, then met his eyes and nodded, as if to say, without words, "You matter here." After a few days of this, his wife said something that nearly brought tears to his eyes. "You seem more present lately. I feel like you're really seeing us." The children were more talkative. The house felt a little lighter, not because he had made big speeches about love or family, but because in those first tiny moments, he was truly there with them. The emotional chemistry was the same as at work and at the party. Before any conversation, before any problem solving, his family received the most basic emotional gift: to be noticed, to feel that when they walked into a room, they did not simply pass through his field of vision, they entered his awareness. In each of these contexts, office, social gathering, home, the habit was the same. 2 seconds of acknowledgement. Lift your eyes, let your face soften. Offer a small smile or nod that says, "I see you." What changed was not just how he felt, but how people felt around him. They were more relaxed, more open, more willing to talk, to collaborate, to share. They liked him more, not because he had transformed his personality, but because he had changed what he did in the first instant of every encounter. People feel valued before any words are spoken. Long before they have judged your intelligence, your humor, or your opinions, they have already felt, on some level, whether you notice them or not. That feeling is what this tiny habit touches. And that is why, though it may be small, it can make you instantly more likable in the eyes and in the hearts of others. Once you grow comfortable with the 2-second acknowledgement, you can turn it into something even more powerful. Think of it as a ladder. The first rung is simply, "I see you." The next rungs are small additions, name, warmth, and interest that deepen the connection without ever feeling forced. You climb it 1 rung at a time, and every rung is human warmth. The first rung you already know. Acknowledge. You lift your eyes, soften your face, and give that slight smile or nod. It tells the other person, "You are not invisible to me." The second rung is to use their name within the first 10 seconds. There is a special music to one's own name. I have watched people's faces change countless times when someone remembers and uses it. It says, "You are not just someone, you are you." So now the sequence becomes, you see them, you greet them, and gently you add their name. At work, instead of only saying good morning, you say, "Good morning, Anna." In a shop, instead of only saying thank you, you glance at the employee's name tag and say, "Thank you, Maria." At home, instead of calling from another room, you step closer, catch your child's eye, and say, "Hey, Daniel." The words are simple, but the effect is not. You are telling that person you are specific to. For many people, that alone is enough to make you stand out. The third rung is to offer a brief, sincere warmth cue. Just a short phrase that adds feeling to the acknowledgement. "Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. How are you today?" This is not a script. It is an attitude expressed in a few words. Imagine meeting a colleague in the hallway. You look up, smile, and say, "Morning, James. Good to see you." He walks away not just thinking, "James passed me," but "Someone noticed me and was glad I was there." The difference may be small in that moment, but repeated day after day, it changes the entire relationship. The fourth rung is to ask one small question that shows interest. It does not have to be profound. In fact, the simpler the better, as long as it is genuine. To a coworker, "How is that project going?" To a neighbor, "How have things been on your side of the street?" To a friend, "How did that meeting go yesterday?" To a family member, "How did your day really go?" The key is not to interrogate, but to open a small door. You are saying, "If you would like to share a little of your world with me, I am willing to listen." People rarely forget the ones who listen to them with sincere interest, even for a minute or two. So the habit, in full, looks like this. Acknowledge. You see them. Name. You let them know you remember who they are. Warmth. You add a short, sincere phrase of welcome. Interest. You ask one small question that invites them to speak. You do not need to use all four rungs every time. Some situations call only for the first or second. In a crowded elevator, you may only manage a nod and a good morning. With a cashier, perhaps a smile, their name, and a "How's your day going?" With your spouse or child, you may often climb all the way to the fourth rung, taking a moment to ask and truly listen. The beauty of this ladder is that it fits any personality. If you are naturally quiet, you can still acknowledge, use names, and ask gentle questions. If you are more outgoing, this gives shape to your energy so that it lands as warmth, not overwhelmed. Do not try to force all of this at once. Choose one rung to practice for a week. Perhaps you focus on names using them kindly, not mechanically. Then you add a little warmth. Then, when it feels natural, you add the small question. What you are really building is not a performance, but a presence. Step by step, you are becoming the sort of person with whom others feel seen, welcome, and invited to be themselves. And that, more than any trick or charm, is what makes a human, being deeply likable. I would like to close this time with you in a different way, not by repeating what you have already heard, but by asking you a simple question. Who in your life needs to feel seen by you today? Not next week, not someday when things are calmer. Today, is it someone at home, perhaps a partner who has grown used to your tired nod at the end of the day, or a child who rushes past you, not quite sure you are really watching? One extra second of your full attention, one look that says, "I see you," can mean more to them than a whole speech about love. Is it someone at work, a colleague who always seems to stand at the edge of conversations, a junior employee who rarely gets a proper greeting, or even a manager who carries more pressure than anyone admits? You might be surprised how far a sincere, "Good morning, Sarah, good to see you," can travel. Inside a person who feels unnoticed. Is it someone you have grown distant from, a friend you used to know well, a parent, a sibling, someone with whom words became complicated and so you slowly stopped reaching out? You may not be ready for long conversations yet, but you can begin with that. Small habit. Lift your eyes, soften your face, and let them feel, even for a moment, that they still matter to you. You do not have to answer me out loud, but answer yourself clearly. At home, at work, with someone I've been distant from, who will I choose to truly see today? If you are willing, I would love for you to share it in the comments. Tell me, where in the world are you watching from? How old are you? And who will you practice this small habit with? First, someone at home, someone at work, or someone you've grown distant from? Writing it down is more than a formality. It is a quiet promise to yourself. Remember, you do not need to become more impressive to be more likable. You do not need to change your personality, your past, or your story. You need only to offer people what they are starving for in a noisy world, a moment of real attention. If you keep choosing, day after day, to see the people in front of you, to acknowledge them, to use their name, to offer a little warmth and interest, you will discover something remarkable. Others will begin to feel different around you. And when they feel different, they will see you differently, too. Not as the shy one, not as the invisible one, but as the person who makes them feel a little more human. If you want to learn not how to impress people, but how to touch them, how to speak and act in ways that make others feel valued, respected, and understood, I invite you to subscribe. There is a whole world of human hearts around you, waiting, often silently, to be seen.